Hi, this is Badi from howtostartablog.org, and welcome to All Things Blogging. The other day we went over the 200 plus fastest loading free responsive WordPress themes. Well, today we're going to take the fastest theme from that list and make it even faster. I'm going to show you 3 really easy changes you can make that will significantly improve the Google PageSpeed Insight score and make your pages load faster in the process. So let's get ready to do some page speed optimization. All right, for those of you who may have missed the last post, we tested over 1,000 free WordPress themes to find the fastest responsive theme that we could find. And that theme ended up being a theme called Generic Framework. And this is what Generic Framework actually looks like live. You can see it's just pretty basic. And if I can get the mobile version to load here, take a look at that. So this is what it looks like as a mobile site. Again, pretty basic, but very clean looking. These are the metrics for the Generic Framework theme. You can see that there were 12 requests. The total size was pretty small, under 60 kilobytes, and you've got a pretty good desktop score for Google, and the mobile score is low, but that's actually true of most of the themes that we tested, and the usability score was pretty good. And then you can see that the overall page load timing was about 768 milliseconds, almost 0.8 of a second. And you can see the top 2 improvements here were number 1, to minify the CSS, and number 2, minimize render blocking resources. And what that means is to get rid of kind of JavaScript or CSS or whatever it is that is in the way of the actual page loading. So you want to have the HTML, the main structure of the page, loading first, so that people can actually see something, and then you can load JavaScript and all the other resources that the page needs to run. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is just get a couple of baseline measurements, and the first one we'll get is just go ahead and get the Google PageSpeed Insights score. So if I go ahead and analyze it, it's running, and this just takes 1 minute to do, and you can see for mobile we've got 75 out of 100, and for desktop 91 out of 100. Okay, the next baseline we're going to get is the page load speed, and that is going to be done using sitespeed.io, the same tool that we used for the big test, and we're going to run it 3 times just like we did in the main test. Okay, we got a speed of 906 milliseconds. Now that is a little bit slower than the speed that we got in the main test. Now, the main reason for the difference there is likely my internet service provider. There can be some differences depending on how fast your internet connection is. Internet speeds do tend to change for different times of the day. If I do this test on my laptop, which is on Wi-Fi, it can be a little bit slower than my desktop, which is hardwired. So don't worry too much about the difference. Let's just look at the 906 millisecond baseline. So 906 milliseconds is the time to beat. All right, I said this was going to be easy, and that is because we're going to be using plugins. The first one is going to be Auto-Optimize or Auto-Optimize. Don't know how you would pronounce that, but what this does basically is it optimizes your code, it optimizes your JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. It makes it minified, which means removes all the spacing, extra line breaks. It also moves a few things down. It moves the CSS kind of down a little bit so that the HTML can load first. And it also has some caching features. Basically tells browsers that it can cache JavaScript, CSS, and different types of files. We're not really looking at that because we're just looking at the first not cached visit. Either way, though, those are good features to have. The next plugin that we're going to be using is called WP Deferred JavaScript. What this plugin does is it makes it so that if a theme developer has not optimized the way that JavaScript loads, This plugin basically does that for it. It will make it so that the HTML, the page structure loads first, and then the JavaScript and other files can start to load. The final plugin that we're going to use is called Abovethefold Optimization. Now this plugin actually does a lot of different things, but we are going to use it for one purpose, and that is to optimize fonts. Now a lot of WordPress themes will include external fonts, which can slow your site down, and this plugin is going to fix that. It's going to make it so that the fonts load after everything else, and it won't slow things down. Okay, so I'm in my WordPress installations plugin area, and you can see I've got these 3 plugins installed. Now let's look at the setup for each plugin. Okay, so let's just go ahead and take a look at the settings. I've got optimize HTML code checked, optimize JavaScript code, and optimize CSS. I've also got aggregate inline CSS, and inline all CSS is a really cool one. What it does is basically takes the CSS out of files and sticks it into the page. And that might look a little bit sloppy, but it actually makes things load a whole lot faster. We also got checked save aggregated script CSS as static files. Okay, so make sure you've got those settings that way. Now let's look at deferred JavaScript. For WP deferred JavaScript, there's not really anything to do if you've got something that you don't want it to affect, because there is a chance that this could break something on your site. Not permanently, of course. You just would basically turn if it does break something, you could always turn this off. But it does give you the option to exclude certain things. Finally, let's go over the setup for Abovethefold Optimization. If your theme does not use external fonts, you don't need to install this plugin. Okay. If your theme does have external fonts, then you're going to have a couple of options. The first is going to be to ignore the external fonts. Don't use them. That's going to be by far your biggest speed gain, and it's going to also be the easiest way to do this. If you really feel like you need these external fonts, then your second option is going to be to basically load them locally. You're going to download the fonts and upload them to your WordPress theme and optimize the way that they load. In this video, I'm only going to go over the first option, but I will document how to do the second option clearly. I just don't want to do that in this video because it actually can get a little bit complicated. If you really want to do that, again, check the description for a link. Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is click the CSS tab. Make sure you've got optimized web fonts enabled, and the webfonts.js load method should be disabled. Remove all fonts. Then just come down and click save, and that's it. And again, if you really want to use the external fonts, check the description for a link, and I'll explain how to do that. Okay, we've got our plugins ready to go, so let's go ahead and test again. Now keep in mind that this theme, generic framework, does not use any external fonts, so we're not going to need that Abovethefold Optimization plugin. All right, so we're testing again, and look at that. We've got 100 of 100 for desktop, we've got 100 of 100 for mobile. Look at that, just from 2 plugins. A perfect score. That's pretty impressive. Okay, now let us test the actual page load speed. All right, so for page load, this is what we had the first time, 906 milliseconds. The second time, we got almost 300 milliseconds lower. That's a huge difference. Here are the results. Again, I've just highlighted everything so you can see more clearly. We did this kind of as an initial test run, and we did the second run just to make sure that the times were about the same. So these were before the plugins. We had 906 milliseconds. And after adding the 2 plugins, we've got 636 milliseconds, which is really, I'm pretty floored by how big of a difference that is. And of course, the Google PageSpeed Insight scores are also pretty amazing. 100. I mean, I actually was not expecting to get 100, so I think that's pretty awesome. All right, so generic framework was already pretty fast. It was pretty simple. So I thought it might be a good idea to test one more, and we'll do one that had a little bit more to it. This is one of the ones that I highlighted as being a really good layout. I thought the layout was really nice. So let's see what we can do with this one. We're going to take some initial page speed scores, and then we'll go from there. Okay, here we are. Let's go ahead and get a baseline for page speed insights. All right, so mobile, we're getting 75 out of 100. And desktop, we're getting 89. Now we're checking speeds for page load. This is an initial test. We got 1.32 seconds. Let's go ahead and activate these plugins. We're going to do auto optimize, and we're going to do WP Deferred JavaScript and see what happens. Okay, so we started at 75 and 89. Look, it's still 75. What's going on here? So let's see what's happening. It's telling me that there is render blocking JavaScript and CSS, and I'm checking to see what that is, and it's showing Google fonts. So let's go ahead and install this Abovethefold Optimization plugin. We'll activate it, and let's go to the settings. Make sure everything is set up correctly. Okay, everything looks good here. We've got Optimize Web Fonts enabled, and we've got Disable Remove All Fonts. So let's test again. And there we go. We've got 99 of 100 for mobile now, and 96 of 100 for desktop. And of course, there are some more changes we could make. But again, much, much better grades. Let's take one more reading for the actual page load timing. Okay, we've actually decreased the page load time down to 1.23 seconds. Not as big of a decrease as the previous, but still not bad. I hope this has been helpful. I really think these are some pretty easy wins, some easy improvements you can make. I'd appreciate any comments, questions, or feedback you have, and thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next time.